Back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do, or really announce, a brand new live show that I'm going to be doing every Thursday, right? And it's probably going to be around 12:45 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when I'm going to do it. And it's going to be called After the Poll. That's right. I will be discussing comic books, okay, that I have read after I pulled them, right? It makes sense to get it to make sense to see if these books actually live up to my expectations. Okay, so I guess that's what this series is going to be. So whatever books I have read, we're going to discuss it in a live show. I'm going to go over them. I'm going to review them, and then you guys hopefully will tune into this show and we'll talk about it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, so far I've only read 4 books this week, and we're going to talk about a couple of these books just so you guys get an idea. So I appreciate the few viewers that are actually on watching right now, and as this show develops and I gain more viewership again, hopefully you guys will watch. So after the poll, let's see what I thought about these 4 books that I actually have read so far. And the first one that we're going to discuss today, okay, is Flash Forward. All right, issue number 1. Now, just to let you guys know, there are spoilers in this discussion. So if you haven't read your books, you may want to read them first, then catch this post live. Okay, but again, the show is called After the Poll because I read some of these and I want to discuss them, and this gets me a way for you guys to actually see more of my thoughts on these comments on this channel. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to talk about Flash Forward issue number 1, 6-issue miniseries. This falls from the pages of Heroes in Crisis. Okay, so when it came to this book, I was like, oh, maybe we'll get to see the ramifications of Wally West and how he's dealing with the whole thing while he's in jail, and we get to see maybe his build up through coming back through the whole DC universe, and it'll be an emotional and giant story, and that's what I was hoping for, right? And I don't know, it just felt like the story was just kind of forced for me, okay? It's just like right now we get the guy that was from Sideways, if you guys ever saw him, okay? And he says that this dark multiverse is taking over the world or the universe or whatever the case may be. And Raymond Dean says, "Sup, Spider Slayer? Hello to everyone else." Thanks, Raymond, for joining the show. And so, yeah, so what happens is we get to see him, and then we get to see a little recap of kind of, I guess, like some thoughts and memories of what's going through Wally West's actual brain as he's wearing this like dampener collar, okay? And it suppresses his powers, and his mind is moving a million times a minute. And there's a lot of things that are happening here. And we get to see him in prison and how he's just all depressed, and he can never forgive himself for what he had. Slaughter Cinema's in the house. What's up, bud? And we get to see a little emotional moment in here with Linda Park on how she was a major player in an alternate universe and whatnot. But after that, that's when all the emotions just left this story, okay? We get some kind of third-rate person that was going after the Mobius chair. Don't know what's going on there yet. I'm still yet to be determined. The character dies. So yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. And so then there's this big brawl because there's these different characters that are after him for putting him in prison, so that's going to be very predictable. And by the time we get to the end of it, this guy winds up calling Wally West and says, "You have to save the world. I'm too busy to really explain it," so you don't get a real explanation here. He's just like, "You're destined to save the universe." And he gets his costume back on, and the next thing you wind up finding out is he comes into President Superman, which is in, I guess, a different Earth. I don't know if it's Earth 52. I don't know if it's Earth, whatever. And so now he has to save the universe. So what did I think of Flash Forward issue 1? Well, when it came to that book, I was kind of like, because I wanted to see a much more emotional story with Wally instead of him being thrusted into this adventure already. We don't even get a full story. We don't even get really ramifications. I wanted to see how the heroes dealt with him when they put him in prison and how he was dealing with that a little bit more before he got thrusted into the story. And it was just like he just gets transported there, and it's just, I don't know. I thought it was just kind of off there for me a little bit. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed with it. I like Brett Booth's artwork. I think it's good there. But I just thought it was a little bit average for me. I was expecting better things here. So I'm hoping that, I'll check out the next issue and see if it gets any better. But if it's not better by issue 2 or 3, I might just actually not read this anymore. I don't know. So, guys, thanks. I got 9 viewers, all right, and 2 thumbs up. So if you like this one, give it a thumbs up. I got Bavarian in the house. She says, "What's up, Mike? I'm at work, so I'm just going to listen and try to be stealthy." That's always slick right there, right? And then, yeah, so we got that going on. Raymond Dean is in there. I'm good, enjoying rare, nice Michigan day. So they're asking each other how everyone's doing, which is kind of cool. Again, for the new viewers that are on here, you can expect this show to come on every Thursday, okay, at around 12:45, 1 o'clock, as this is called After the Poll. And I'll be discussing whatever comic books that I've actually read at that point in time. Okay, so I'll try to read some of the more important number ones, the big event type of books, stuff like that. And, maybe you guys can give me some insight on those books, on what you thought of them too. So Flash Forward, if I give it a rating out of 5 stars, I'm going to give that one 3 out of 5. Okay, it was okay for me. Yeah, it was just okay. I just did not expect Wally to go in this cosmic, dark, multi-universe adventure so soon. I wanted to see more of him dealing with his own shit and how he comes back into the universe, or into the being a hero again. And I don't know, thrusting him into a multiverse was the right thing to do. Maybe he should have been thrusted into the main DC universe to try to prove himself, not only to society, but to, again, his fellow comrades, So now he's just going to be working with a bunch of alternate people. I don't know if I get that. All right, so next book I'm going to talk about today, guys, is going to be SpiderMan issue 1 from J.J. Abrams and Henry Abrams and Sarah Pichelli, who does the actual artwork. Okay, I did not read House of X yet. There's always a lot of involvement or rereading for me when it comes into it, so I won't be talking about that though. But however, maybe next week. Okay, again, I actually wasn't going to do this show today. I was going to start it next week, but I just wanted to let you guys know it was out there, okay? That's why this episode is probably a little bit rough and maybe not prepared, but hey, that's why you have pilot episodes, right? So, J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, Spider-Man issue 1, okay? Elseworld story, obviously, does not take place in the main MCU. So when did old Peter turn into John Wick? That is so true. I was sitting there thinking about who does Peter look like? He's all scruffy, long hair, stuff like that. And Raymond says was not impressed with his book. Okay, so right away this book opens up. All right, Sarah Pichelli, she does the artwork, and her artwork's pretty good. I like it, and we're in this apocalyptic world. Okay, just keep in mind when it comes to reading this book, you'll read it and it's like 5 minutes. There's so much dialogue that goes into this book. Okay. So we see that a lot of stuff has happened. Peter's arm is all mangled and twisted and whatnot. And we see this main antagonist here is called Canverous or something weird like that. Okay. And the next thing we wind up seeing is that, again, guys, these are spoilers. So if you haven't read this book, just come back later and watch this post live. But we wind up seeing freaking Mary Jane gets impaled by one of his like fingers or whatever it is. And I guess from there on out, all shit hits the fan, right? Peter Parker's world is turned upside down. He has a son in this particular book by the name of Ben, and we get to see that the whole family's infected by this. Peter becomes distant. He has a job where he travels a lot, and it's kind of like you don't know what he really does. He truly lost his hand. He's kind of like a Rick Grimes. That's who I was thinking of at first. It's like he's a Rick Grimes wannabe, right? His son is, people are being bullied at his school, and then his son tries to be the hero. He never sees his dad ever because he's always traveling. He's a kind of a troubled kid a bit. And yeah, it was just like very similar tone to what you're used to from Peter Parker. And you get to see him going through the changes of becoming like a spider person, right? He sticks to a doorknob, the doorknob breaks, he's having a nightmare, and then what happens is he winds up sticking to the ceiling, like he sees his mom that's dead, and it's kind of creepy. I can say it's got that a little bit of a horror tone, and the next thing he wakes up from this nightmare and he's sticking to the floor. And you're just like, wow, that's kind of weird. So Scott says, I was pleasantly surprised by Spider-Man #1. Sucked me in. And Raymond says he does look like a comic book Rick Grimes. So yeah, he sticks to the ceiling. And then Aunt May just goes, well, Aunt May's still alive. 12 years later, now she's really decrepit looking. And she's like, why don't you go upstairs and find your father's stuff? So he goes upstairs, and the next thing you see is that he pulls out the old costume. So it looks like Peter, ever since he's lost Mary Jane and his arm, he has not been Spider-Man since. And we see his son looks like that he could possibly be the newest Spider-Man. So he could be taking over, all right? I thought it was an okay book. I did like it better than Flash, I feel. I thought it was okay. I just thought it was a very quick read. And right away they kill off Mary Jane, so that's the problem for everybody, right? But it was a little bit darker. I'm curious to see what Ben's powers are going to be like and whatnot. So we'll see. Vinny says, I'll stick around for #2 to see what's up. How many issues is this story? I don't remember. I thought it was like 12 or 6. That's a pretty big difference. I guess I have no clue. 6, Scott says. Thanks, Scott. So yeah, so it's around there. Okay, so it did get me to read another issue. I found it quite interesting. I want to see what it's about, what direction it truly does take you with Ben, with Peter, Aunt May, I could care less about, and who this character is. They kill off Mary Jane, but she's going to come back. She is inside the tube. Oh, yes, that's right. This Canvas guy actually kept Mary Jane, I guess. And yeah, kept her in that tube because you saw her in there. That's right. And actually, I'm going to show you that picture of it. It was kind of a dark picture. I totally forgot that because I got sucked in by this bloody scene right there. I thought that was kind of crazy. But where is it? Oh yeah, so she's right here. Okay, so that's where she's at. So it's kind of like a Mr. Freeze type of thing. I don't know. Keep your wife in your test tube, except it's your enemy's wife. I don't know. But it was okay. It was a decent read, okay? So I'm going to continue to reading it. Not the best Spider-Man story, but if his son involved in writing it, then hey, what the hell, okay? All right, so next, Guardians of the Galaxy issue 9. Have you guys been reading this book? Because this one has been good. And Donny Cates has been the one that's been behind the helm on this book. And it's all about the Universal Church of Truth. I can never remember that name. Okay. And also the dealings of Rocket Raccoon possibly dying in this series. And Earth, again, going into another apocalyptic future. Okay. So this Universal of Truth wants to suck all the life off of Earth, and they want to create all their mass armies to stay alive and all this other kinds of crap. And Peter Quill has been captured by them and whatnot, and we kind of get to see what the future is in store for Earth, right? Apocalyptic future of what this universal truth people do to all the heroes and to Earth and all that other crazy nonsense. You wind up getting to see which could be the embodiment of death in there, or it could be the universal truth people. So you could see that in there too. Cryptic says, I miss Cosmic Ghost Rider on the Guardians team. Would have liked to see him in Rocket, but butt heads and firepower. Yeah, I thought Cosmic was going to be in this series a little bit more, but it still has been entertaining. And don't forget, this series does end in issue 12, and I don't know if this has a much larger scale going forward infecting the cosmic universe. So Peter Quill, he's under this spell of his father's universal church truth thing, whatever it is. And then what happens is he obviously gets in control of himself, and he punches his father out, and he's going to try to escape. But he doesn't escape. Meanwhile, the other actual Guardians of the Galaxy in this book actually are looking for help to try to save Peter. And what happens here is they come across a young Magnus. Okay, so he's very young here. Don't know what happened with him, where he's been, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, he's very young in the issue. Then after the end of all the other, like in the last issue, at the end of this particular issue, you're trying to find out what's in these Adam Warlock like caskets or whatnot. And the next thing you find out is when one of these creatures emerges from this casket, you find out, huge spoiler here. So again, I'm just letting you guys know, okay, that you wind up seeing Drax. But not only is it Drax, guys, it's old school Drax from like Infinity Gauntlet there. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, what the hell is happening there? So I was totally blown away by that. I doubt that was the last thing that I expected there. So Vinny says, dumb, 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 dumb. Is it dumb because it's Drax? Or it's old school Drax? Tell me, Vinny, I want to hear your thoughts there behind that. So that was interesting, okay? I've liked this story. Again, the most curious thing that I'm looking forward to is the Rocket Raccoon situation. I want to know what's going on there. Is he going to die? Is he going to get resurrected from this church or whatever? And Vinny says, I love old school Drax, actually. So, yeah. So, it's a good read. I love the artwork. Great stuff in this book. There's some great lines in there with Rocket Raccoon. I can definitely say check that out. You know, it's with him and Gamora, so that's kind of cool. All right. So the last book that we're going to talk about today, because like I said, this is a pilot episode, you know, I'm looking for these normal episodes to run no more than an hour, okay? So, and while you guys are watching or whatever, commenting, just let me know what you think about this idea and things that you might want to see on this show and whatnot. And I'll interact with you guys the best way I possibly can. Okay. Wasn't old school Drax a human? I don't think so, because he was still green and stuff, right? So, yeah. All right. So, Absolute Carnage. Boom. This was a big one for me this time. I like this issue better than the last one. The last one, you got to see Carnage be possessed by Miles Morales. And in this issue, it kind of starts off where it last left off, but you don't see very much of Miles in this particular issue, okay? You just see him get possessed by Carnage, and that's it. And then he becomes this crazy-ass, like, freaking spider creature or something you would see from Stranger Things, like the Mind Slayer. That's what he reminded me of in there. And he kind of gets punched out, and you don't see him from there. So I have a feeling that if you want to read more about Miles, this is the time to read it, okay? Read that tie-in when that one comes out. So Raymond says, I think he was human, transformed to kill Thanos, I think. So, all right. So that's what happens with Miles Morales there. So read his story in the actual tie-in. Scorpion, dude is paralyzed because Carnage tried to get the Codex from him, and he I think he failed, but he still managed to paralyze the Scorpion in this issue. So it's kind of a intense moment. And in this issue, you wind up seeing that the symbiote now, Eddie Brox, is going against Eddie, Okay, he's kind of revolting against them, working against them. They can't get along because in this issue you get to see that the symbiote Venom wants to kill Carnage. Okay, he says our child can't do this anymore. We have to kill him. And so you get to see a lot of that in this issue, the discrepancies between the two characters. Then in this issue, you wind up seeing the team up between some of the Avengers and the actual Spider-Man in this issue. They wind up getting some of the people out to try to get the codexes from them, so they get them in the machine. And Cryptic says, I wonder if Scorpion being paralyzed means he will look like the Scorpion from the Into the Spider-Verse film. I don't know. I guess, time will tell. Okay. So as this issue continues, Sleeper makes his appearance in here, and he's like a cat. So he's like Dylan's little friend in this issue, which I thought is cool. And as the heroes are getting the codexes taken away from them, okay, we wind up seeing Spider-Man having this conversation with Eddie Brock, okay? But my thing with this is like, wow, why is Eddie being so distant from Spider-Man here? And Spider-Man almost like spilled the beans here about his son. If not, maybe he did spill the beans if I remember correctly. But Eddie right away comes in and he's like, Spider-Man, get away from him, So he gets away from him, and then you find out it's Carnage. So you find out that, again, it's this very dark and gritty transformation on what happens to Carnage in this issue. And we get to see this whole battle commence with the whole cult of Carnage, all his little cronies in here, and Spider-Man trying to protect them and whatnot. And then the symbiote, Eddie Brock's symbiote, just sits there and goes, if you don't want to kill anybody, because he's stressing about that, then I'll find a host that will. And there's a person that makes his appearance in this book where you're just like, what? Right? And I can't give this part away. It would be just too much. But you're just like, this person's in this book, and you're kind of like, where does this fit in? Okay? Like, because his character is somewhere else, and you're like, oh man, you're like, where does he fit in? And then Eddie, again, the Venom symbiote takes over this character, and you're like, oh shit, this is about to go down. So I didn't want to give away that because this is a huge, huge book, and I want you guys to actually read that part for yourself. And probably going forward, I might give a little bit less spoilers so you can read your books in case you haven't read them yet. But Vinny says, I have all 3 issues, but I haven't finished number 2 yet. Sounds exciting. Get on that, Vinny. Definitely read that particular issue, okay? But yes, this was really a really good issue. Had a lot more horrific tones to it. It was creepy. The confliction between being good and bad, between Eddie and the symbiote, were really well done. This was better than issue 2, and for me, it was right up there with issue 1. So, yes, I definitely suggest you guys pick this up if you haven't picked it up yet. It's a great book. I'm going to give this one 5 stars, man. This so far is my favorite book of the week. Now, when you look at the other books, I still have about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I probably have about 9 or 10 other books to read, okay? Did you see Art Sherm's page? What page was that particular? And was that in this particular issue? I'm not sure. So he's doing a Scream variant for her new up-and-coming title. Oh, okay. I got you. That would be pretty badass. So I'll have to definitely check that out. So yeah, I still got quite a few books left to read. So like I said, guys, I appreciate you taking the time for checking out this pilot. You can expect kind of like this logo. You can expect a better thumbnail going into it. And again, I'm tweaking it, and I'll tweak it as I go along. Like I said, but I wanted to talk about these comics while discussing your guys, talking about, the thoughts and stuff like that. And yeah, so hopefully this show will grow and you guys will like it. Again, give it a thumbs up. Let people know that it exists out there. Those likes really mean a lot. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch today. So again, next Thursday, 12:45, 1 o'clock. Andrew says, what's up, Slayer? And can't wait for your review of House of X. I don't know if I'll get to it. So that's why I'm doing this type of show, so I can talk about more books at one time for you guys, okay? So that's why I'm doing it. So again, stay tuned next week. Longer show, more books to talk about. Be there. And guys, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off, and you have been watching Comic Book Corner 2.0. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next week.